Get ready to quit the build.
Here we go!
The QTB crew is rounding up all the gaming news and hot topics of the week with a little extra something. And here are your hosts, Bruno, Brad, and Nick.
Hello and welcome to the QTB podcast. My name is Nick, and I have two amazing guests here filling in for Bruno and Brad. Everybody say hello. We've got Kung Fu Penguin, one of our QTB network streamers, and we've got Chris from 1 Hour, 1 Decision. What's going on, guys?
Hello. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I mean, you know, and look, I'm on soundboard duty today, so I'm going to do the best job that I can. I'm trying. I've got the technology, already. But can I execute? We're going to find out very soon. Yes, we are talking about this week's gaming news. Good to have everybody here. Episode 128. That's a fun number. I remember when Nintendo 64, was the thing. We were still talking about bits. Everyone else had moved on. PlayStation didn't care about bits. It was no one was using that term anymore. But Nintendo was still like, we're still the N64. We're gonna keep going up. And then the next wave of consoles was coming out, and people were like, well, maybe it'll be the Nintendo 128. I thought it would be, but then they went and named it the GameCube. Nerds.
Wow.
Just keep doubling the number, for God's sake.
Wow.
I don't understand. Oh well.
Still one of my favorite intros for a gaming console.
Yeah.
It's so iconic.
Oh, I mean, the sound of it alone is, it's right up there.
It's still being memed today. That's still such a fun sound.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Dreamcast was still one of my favorite intros, though. That was great.
Gone too soon. That poor system had so much to offer, and it was just ahead of its time. I think. I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
And now it's like a collector's item, and people still love it. But people make games for it, kind of as a homebrew thing to this day. It was a very unique concept, but just Sega was really on the way out by the time that console had really already launched, right? The Saturn was such a commercial failure that they were struggling. But awesome. Well, hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to be talking about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and the performance issues that we've been having with that, and kind of the fan backlash, and just kind of our initial impressions of the game so far. Also, we'll talk about some of the Game Pass drama. We got a drama alert here with Call of Duty and the CEOs of PlayStation and Xbox going at it, and we are just here to talk about it like we're the TMZ of video games, but not Kotaku. We're actually classy. Okay, no clickbait here. We give it to you straight. Awesome stuff. But the first thing that we like to do before we hop into the news is a little bit of, hey, what you been playing this week? What's been going on? We'll start with you, Joel. I know you've been streaming quite a bit. You just wrapped up a D&D session, and it's funny because you were like, well, I'm not sure if I can make it, but then you're like, you know what? The D&D session finished early, and I was just telling Chris, I'm not entirely convinced that's a real D&D campaign, because no D&D campaign in the history of D&D campaigns has ever ended, on time at all, let alone early. So what's up with that? Yeah, so typically, we go to 11, sometimes 11:30, sometimes midnight. But tonight, when we started, we were in the middle of a quest, and that quest took way longer than our DM thought. So we finished that quest, and he was like, okay, you could either go into a side, like, mini bounty quest, or a full-fledged quest that you 100% will only get halfway through. And the other people in our party tonight were like, let's just end early instead of jumping into something new. And I was like, oh, Nick, do you still need someone else on the show tonight? And so we ended early. But yeah, D&D has been super fun. That's a thing with scheduling is so hard with a bunch of adults and with kids and schedules and works. And so getting D&D together, being able to play has been fun. My neighbor just on our cul-de-sac approached us the other month and was like, hey, can I run a D&D game in the neighborhood kids play? So Amanda has got to play her first D&D sessions. We played a couple sessions now with a couple of the neighborhood kids, and then our neighbor DMing that in person. So that's been super fun because they're like kids. They're like, I'm gonna go leave and do this, and we're like, no, don't leave. And they're like, later, just leave us. And we're like, they're gonna die, and I'm like having to save little kids. I'm like, please don't die. I'm like
I'm chasing after them and trying to help them, and they almost got us ended so many times, but we held on.
What can you do?
It's super fun though.
Yeah, really but as far as video games, I know you've been still streaming quite a bit of Fortnite and what have you. What's been your impression of this season on Fortnite so far?
It's been pretty good so far. I'm looking forward to. They're really building up to December 3rd, the big event, the Fractured event. So I'm looking forward to that. The season overall has been pretty decent. Nothing too out of the ordinary, and nothing too over the top. Some of the things I still wish shotguns were better in certain things, but been pretty solid so far. I've been really enjoying Overwatch 2. There's still some balancing changes that have been needed. They just this past week added some balances that hopefully is going to help out. We haven't been able to try out the new balance changes.
Yeah.
But that's been good.
Awesome.
Yeah, but I picked up Pokemon Violet over the weekend.
Okay.
And I was gone the entire weekend, so I didn't get to play it yet, and I'm excited to talk about it, but I've been I'll hold off to the conversation, but I purposely avoided any spoilers and trying to avoid all the main Pokemon, but oh man, I've seen enough that I'm a little sad boyo right now.
Gotcha. Yeah, we'll get into it for sure. There's definitely a conversation there about the Switch's performance in general at this point in the life cycle. Okay, well, Chris, obviously you've been playing some games there for your 1 hour 1 decision episodes. How's the wheel of 1H1D been treating you?
Well, I had to play a game that was forced upon me by a request on Twitter. And so I did play it. Well, we're going to be talking about it in 2-3 weeks. So it's a spoiler. It's Vampire Survivors. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, okay, so obviously we don't want to get the full 1H1D review here, but I mean that game is notorious because so many people are getting hooked on that game. And also it's known for being a game that kind of has flipped assets I think it's one person that's actually working on it, but you want to talk about just this random success overnight in terms of people picking it up and now everybody wants to play it. Has it surprised you in any way?
Sure. Yeah. It surprised me. It surprised me.
It's a good answer. Okay. I won't press you on it. I know you gotta maintain the integrity of the program.
Yeah.
And it's always funny because on your show, it's you and Tom oftentimes will approach things from a completely different perspective. It's so obvious because from the very beginning, and for those of you that don't know, Chris's show, 1 Hour 1 Decision, one of our network podcasts here on the QTB network, which you can check out at quitthebuild.com/network. The format is that they randomly select a Game Pass game, and or it can be requested by one of the viewers. They play it for exactly 1 hour, no more, no less, and then they give their impressions of the gameplay, which is, I think it's a great public service because, most middle-aged gamers like ourselves, we're lucky when we have an hour to play a game, so we need to know, if I play this game for an hour, is it going to be all, it's Persona, where you're barely even getting, the beginning of the prologue of the prologue, or am I actually going to get some gameplay? It's a lot of fun, and it cracks me up because the first thing you guys do is talk about what your synopsis of the game is, and somehow you and Tom will come up with totally wildly different things about the same game. It's a matter of perspective, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's been definitely a lot of times where we've kind of done a Borg mine and had the same exact thing written down or something like that. But it is fun when we try to figure out what exactly we were thinking about as we were playing the game or after. I tend to write my notes after I play the game, but Tom tends to do it as he's playing it too. So I'm okay, whatever it is.
Different minds. That's it. Makes for a good podcast. So awesome stuff. Yeah. So, to our listeners and viewers here, make sure to check out both of our network partners here, Kung Fu Penguin on Twitch at twitch.tv/Kung Fu Penguin, and also Chris and Tom there again on our website, quitthebuild.com, on our network page, or just search for 1 Hour 1 Decision anywhere that you get podcasts and the video episodes on our YouTube channel already. So yeah, on that note, well, we have got some news to get into here. Oh, wait a second. What have I been playing? That's a good question. I know. I've been playing some games. Our TikTok family knows exactly what I've been playing because people always ask, like, when I'm streaming, like, hey, do you play X or Y, or have you played this game? Like, I'm like, look, I work full time. I'm streaming like 5 hours a night. So what you see me playing is what I'm playing. There's nothing else. So it is. We've had a ton of fun. We just wrapped up the last season of Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, one of our stream regulars. And the new season just started, and they've shown a lot of the opening, crossovers. They've got SpongeBob on there. They have a Skyrim crossover that's going to be in the shop as well on the season pass. Yeah, so there's some cool stuff. It's an underwater theme this season. They added a sliding mechanic. So there's but most importantly, I think what I'm excited about is they brought back so many of the maps. They ran into this big problem, and I don't know what the issue was, but they kind of abandoned the last season where halfway through they're like, you know what, we're going to remove like most of the space maps, which was the season 2 theme, because of technical issues. And so it ended up being like when you played a solo show or whatever, you would have maybe a rotation of like it felt like 10 different maps, and it got old really quickly. And weird. So it was bad, but that between the cross-platform performance issues, I want to say that the Switch has been holding it down, and that's kind of be a good segue into our next story. But we've been having a lot of fun, and I can't wait. Our next Fall Guys stream is going to be this Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern. We'll do another community night of Fall Guys action. But more importantly, I gotta say, Goat Simulator 3. We did it on Monday, Mystery Monday. It can be anything. And I said, you know what? People have been asking me for this. It came out. Chris, you messaged me afterwards. You're like, wait, they released that? Yeah, they did. They released it early. And this is a classic Goat Simulator because Coffee Stain Studios, who makes it, they decided on Twitter, they're like, it's supposed to release later, but the game looks finished, right? And it was like a video of like the giraffe glitching out and like kind of like becoming this ball of physics that goes into space randomly. And then they released it. So now we're playing it, and it is everything I loved about Goat Simulator 1, but just it's way more polished, and there's a lot more to do with the opening world. The starting area is way bigger because the original vanilla Goat Sim, there wasn't a whole lot of space to explore. Amazing game. We can't wait to play it more. The highlight clips that I've got saved from that one stream is going to power our TikTok for a month. we are set on content. So
that's awesome.
That's been fun. But yeah, speaking of that, before we get into the Switch news with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and let me see if this actually works. I have a little button here, and hey! Oh my gosh, everybody! Don't forget that the QTB network is proudly supported by Winner, guys. Winner is the live arcade app that lets you play live claw machines, live mobile games, and more. There's so much to love there because you can play these games right from the comfort of your own home, anywhere, anytime. Earn those tickets, earn those tokens with, by watching ads or completing promotional offers, and get in there and play the games, win the prizes. They're going to ship them directly to your door when you win. And of course, after our amazing excursion there to Vegas, we got to troll you, Joel, quite a bit. You just posted that new clip of the cup pong that Ryan tried to sabotage you with the gun. And what ended up happening was both balls went into the cup.
Double win.
Which is
Double
like
win.
a 1 in a million shot. They better ship you 2 prizes. That's all I'm going to say. Amazing stuff.
Love
Don't
it.
forget, guys, that your first win is free when you download with our link. Play until you win for free. Also, you can use promo code DALE when recharging your tokens at pay.app.winnerwinner.com. You get that sweet deal with a bonus 30% free tokens versus purchasing them on the app. The link to the download and to that website to recharge your tokens there is in the description of this show or podcast show notes. All right, everybody, we're going to hop into our big story for the day. And this is coming to us from our friends over at NintendoLife.com, talking about just the woes, the technical issues that have been plaguing the release of Scarlet and Violet. And, I think anybody that's been in the Pokemon space over the last 5 years plus, this has kind of come to be the expectation of what happens when a Pokemon game gets released, because there's there's always going to be that wonderment of Pokemon and what are you going to find and what's the deck's going to be like. And, now that they're beginning to experiment with this open world format, like we saw with Pokemon Legends Arceus, this is where we're finally getting that traditional full-blown Pokemon experience, but kind of a hybrid, right, of Sword and Shield and Arceus in a way. And kind of the logical conclusion of them experimenting with both of those games. Now, the story here is talking about the major technical issues that have been plaguing this game. And there have been some incredibly, just almost laughably crazy glitches that have been making the rounds on social media. My For You page has been mostly Pokemon Scarlet and Violet glitches, if I'm being honest. That and doubloons TikTok. I don't know what that means. Everybody in chat gets 5 doubloons. Everybody in chat gets 5 doubloons. Chris, you get 6. Don't know why. Yes. I apparently you can just say that. So update your inventories, everybody. It's like D&D, but like way looser.
Right. And what do you do with those things? Who goes?
I don't know. It's good luck. But yeah, so, and the glitches are crazy, but not only just like pop-in issues or just like weird graphics issues, but major slowdown, so much so like certain points in the game, you're talking about like single digit frames per second, if not less. That really, I think, are beginning to show the problems that even like first party games like this, even though they have third party developers, right? Are having to figure out how the heck to utilize the Switch's technology correctly while also putting out a product on time. That seems to be the two big things. So, I mean, I'll throw it over to you, Joel. You said you've purchased Violet, you haven't gotten to it, and there's a story behind that, right?
Well, yeah. So I was gone all weekend for a wedding, but returning Monday, I didn't actually get. We were. Speaking of the sickness, it was an outdoor wedding in November and 40 degrees, so wasn't feeling great on Monday. But yeah, we've seen an average of 20 frames a second or less with this game. Your character like expands to be huge and then small. Pokemon that aren't supposed to appear, or they float off into the air. One of my favorite quotes, though, so far is people saying, like, it's one of the worst experience they've seen as far as, like, graphics and gameplay, but one of their favorite Pokemon games to play ever.
Right.
And
yeah.
And they're like, darn you, Game Freak! We hate it, but we still love it! Because here's this is it the most money made off a franchise ever? Or, like, one of the most?
It's on top grossing, yeah.
One of the top grossing ever. And they put this out, and you're like, man, they need help. Like, can Game Freak be the ones to work with the Pokemon Company to develop, like, game mechanics and things like that, but then somebody else help with the engine? I don't know. Like, what do they need to do to? Is it just time? Is it resources? I'm not quite sure, but yeah, it's unfortunate. I was so excited to play it, and I've been trying to get away with as not seeing, like, I haven't seen the evolutions yet of the starters on purpose. I've been trying to avoid those,
right.
And things like that to get to play through it on stream. It's as a streamer, you get those things where you really want to play it, but then you also want to stream it. And so
yeah, exactly.
So then you're like,
yeah, I know that feeling. This is content.
This is content. But then I'm like, but I just want to enjoy it and play it, but I'm too tired and not feeling good enough to stream, so I'm just gonna set it on my table and just look at it as I'm like eating dinner, So no, yeah, the reviews, like, the scores are getting good, but then some of the player reviews are really low because it's just the performance has just been so rough. What are you guys seeing with the reviews so far?
So I'm glad you brought that up, because right now on Metacritic, and it's just so fascinating when this happens, where you get these huge gaps between the user score and the official review score on Metacritic. And you got to take both into consideration. You also have to consider, is this game getting review bombed, right? Because there is this, like, collective online hive mind that seems to be prepared to go into a user review and bring it down more often than it's willing to bring it up. I think that's just kind of the nature of being unhappy. The happy people are playing the game. They're not thinking, hey, I need to go put in a good score on Metacritic. I want to play more of this. Right. And so that's kind of the nature, I think, of any business where reviews tend to struggle when when the only people who are actually leaving a review are the ones who are hurting, and want to let you know about their pain, or they
review
physically
bombing
can't
type of
play the
thing.
game, right? Because maybe it's not available or there's server issues. So, right now the Metacritic score for the critic reviews is a 76. Not bad, especially considering the technical aspects of it that are lagging behind. But the user score is an abysmal 2.9. What a juxtaposition there between those two scores. One of the biggest gaps that I have personally seen, and I think reflects the what you had brought up there, Joel, which is the major problem of like, this game is conceptually fantastic. They obviously understand what they want from the open world aspects, but the problem is they just can't figure out how to utilize the Switch hardware. And one thing, before I throw it over to you, Chris, there are people that have been emulating this game. Let's just be honest, it happens. And what they did was they with these emulators, you're able to use your GPU to run the game at a better rate than the Switch can itself. And certain games benefit from that. Certain games don't as much. But with like mid-tier gaming PC specs, like something you could get, pre-built for, $600. People are running this thing at a solid 30, sometimes even going up to 60 frames per second if you go in and change the source code a little bit, with none of the glitches, none of the graphical slowdown.
That's crazy.
So in a perfect environment, this game is actually running really well, and it's becoming obvious that the problem is not necessarily Game Freak's development of the game, but the actual Switch hardware that seems to be holding them back. I don't know the real inside baseball there, but I mean, what's your thought on this, Chris? I know you guys mostly focus on Xbox content, but at the end of the day, the Switch is kind of running in between generations, right? With the timing of the release of the Switch. The Switch Pro was rumored for a while. It never came to fruition. We just got a slightly nicer screen. Do you think that this problem that they're having right now is an indicator that it is time to move on to a new gen or to new hardware? Or are we just going to be stuck with these games that would have run better like on 2006 hardware?
Ooh, well, I think the one thing for sure, if this isn't a sign of Nintendo, like this hardware is on its last legs, and that Nintendo has something in the background there to like re-release this game on, like I would be shocked. But really, like, I don't know. I'm surprised because like Tom has this game too, and he was like super excited to play it. And he found out that he was having the problem. He didn't really have the glitches that people were having, but just the performance issues. And then he found a way to clock it down so that it froze it at 720p as opposed to 1080. And that's supposed to help a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so far he's been enjoying himself, but I don't know, like I guess Nintendo's like, hey, as long as the wheels are still on this thing, and it's like we're just gonna keep going with it, right? It's still making money for them. It's still making money for them. So
are the wheels on? I guess that's the real question. Is like,
it might be on fire, but it's still on.
Right. So we had talked before about, and I had mentioned this earlier, that Fall Guys has been having some problems that resulted in, content being stripped away literally from the rotation because the games weren't running properly. And one of the issues was, and this happened all the time when we would do our TikTok streams, because people can play, the community games that we host from any platform, and Switch is part of that. And people already know that, if there's a multi-platform game, it's probably going to run the worst on Switch. Hard for it not to. Yeah. And there were certain maps where like the game wouldn't load properly, or there would be major slowdown or hiccups or freezing, or even crashing on certain levels that only happened on the Switch. And it just seems more and more, and like you were saying, that having to do that workaround of getting it down to 720p just to get the game running properly, like gamers shouldn't have to do that. That's the whole point of console gaming, right? And that's the big thing, is that console gaming is supposed to be an all-in-one package. That's the perk of going with a console versus a PC, is the ease and the convenience of I have a cartridge or I have a disc. I mean, these days it's so much more digital, but Nintendo is still in that cartridge mode. And I can put it in and the game just works.
Mhm.
And even now, the Nintendo's mantra of, having these day one AAA experiences that are, of popular family-friendly franchises, they seem to be falling victim to that day one problem of releasing a game in a beta state. And, the early adopters of the game are the ones that have to suffer for it. And it's just, I think it's plaguing the game review industry, because you look at these scores and there are people that gave it 100, which is ridiculous. And they're the ones that gave it like a 20. Because now it's not so much about, you have to decide, like, as a game reviewer, like, how much do the technical aspects of it weigh it down? How does that affect my final score, knowing that some or all of it will eventually be patched? Do I base it off of the actual merit of the game? And then, of course, the fanboys come in, and if you are critical of the game in any capacity, they have to go after you. So it's tough, because it just makes it very difficult for somebody to make a day one purchase of a $60 plus game and feel like they're getting their money's worth. I mean, more and more and more now. I just don't even consider a pre-order. I don't even consider a day one purchase, because I want to wait and see. And even if I think I want the game, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a solid couple months here before I purchase it, because my game backlog, like any gamer, is ridiculous right now. But it's unachievable at this point. But B, why put yourself through that experience when the game can be so much more? No Man's Sky is a great example of that. Cyberpunk is a great example of coming to a game years after its release, and you get to see Sea of Thieves. Oh my gosh, what a product now. That is, it really is something. But going over to our viewer comments here, Caitlin is saying that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is looking a lot like Disney Dreamlight, and she is tempted to get it, but the early release games on Switch are so bad. Yeah, and I mean, like I said, even these first party games, even though it's a third party developer and just Nintendo is publishing it, it really leaves a stain on their legacy. And I said this a million times about games like Pokemon Go, that first year it was out, where it was just a hot mess of, like, if it wasn't for the Pokemon name, if it wasn't for the Pokemon franchise, nobody would play this game. It would get the reviews would be lower. No one, it would be way more critical of it. But we allow for those the soft spot that we all have in our heart for Pokemon to be like, but they're trying their best, and they want to make a working product, and they've got good ideas. Meanwhile, Sword and Shield is still, all this time later, not in the best state. So I think there's something to be said for them to consider that it might be time, whatever, research and development's going into the next Switch, they need to do it. I don't think they want to, because they love the fact that, like, everybody has a Switch now.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, could it also be hindering because of the, again, resources and, like, chip shortages and stuff like that? Like, that whole hardware, actual, like, being able to build all the, whatever the new Switch is called, having all that and be ready to ship that stuff and not have the same issues that, Microsoft and Sony had when they were releasing Xbox Ones and or Series X's and S's and PlayStation 5s,
Yeah.
Is that still happening? I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, I see Nintendo Switches in stores, right, Joel? Like, I mean, it's, right now, like, the PS5 is still having a problem, but I think that's a whole different set of issues. But, the Xbox Series S and X seems to be kind of stocked for the holidays. I mean, are you seeing, like, Switch hardware are you still walking into Best Buy?
I was just in Target today, and they had a ton of lights, Switch LEDs, and regular Switches. They had a bunch of each of them. Okay. So they had them there, and I saw Series S's. I think there were Series X's as well. There, I didn't see any PS5s, but I might have missed them. But
wow,
it's still.
No, you didn't miss them. They're not there.
Pokemon Go. They just a couple weeks ago, they had a huge glitch in the game. Amanda and I still play Pokemon Go, and they tried to do a new release of a Pokemon Zorua, and it was this special thing where it was kind of like Ditto. Your buddy would appear on the ground, and you clicked on it and be like, "What's this?" And it would change to Zorua. But they messed it up, and it would have the power level of your buddy instead of like 300 power level. It had like a CP, it was like 3,000 or 4,000, and it broke the game. And so instead, they took it out of the game and then turned off the use of the Bluetooth devices, the Pokemon Go Plus, where you could capture Pokemon on those. You couldn't even use those for like a week. Because they were like,
Wow.
we broke it, sorry. And literally just took it out of the game. Everybody's like, what the heck, man? Like, I can't even use my Pokemon Go Plus because you broke the game day one. Like, come on. Like, so it was so silly.
Yeah. But I mean, you played through Pokemon Legends Arceus on stream there, Joel, pretty much like top to bottom. I mean, you know, as far as that goes, I mean, that game pretty much proves that like the open world concept for Pokemon can be breathtaking when done correctly, right?
Yeah, and like it didn't look as beautiful as say like Breath of the Wild did, but it was still. I think Arceus was kind of like a proof of concept that the open world could work for Pokemon because people were like, I'm not sure. They're so used to a linear. They kind of started doing some of the things, and then like you said, where Violet and Scarlet is kind of a mix between Sword and Shield and Arceus, kind of like that mix there. But they showed a proof of concept that it works. And then I just don't understand how that still ran really smoothly. And it was still a big world. Sometimes you get some stutters, but it still averaged at least, 30 frames a second. And then you get into this game and you're seeing 15, 20 frames. And then you might get 30 if you put it on 720p. And I'm like, oh no, like that's such a bummer that like you would go backwards. And then you have like Xenoblade Chronicles and these other games that you're like, huge maps and like these beautiful graphics, and you're like, is this a development issue? Is this like, are they putting too much in the back end? Is it all the extra Pokemon? I don't know. I'm not a developer for Nintendo or Game Freak to know this, but it just seems like if they can push those types of levels of graphics and intensity, I'm not sure why Game Freak, one of the biggest developers, isn't able to do this.
Yeah, it's tragic, but we'll see what happens as time goes by. But it just seems like Pokemon it has the vision, it has the know-how to make it happen, but there's just something happening in the development process, and I think it might be something to do with Nintendo, saying, hey, we want these games out by the holidays, because Sword and Shield isn't that far ago. Pokemon Legends Arceus wasn't that long ago. So I think there's an issue there. I'm going to give a quick shout out though, and you're welcome, Pokemon community, because one of the things I've been advocating for on 2 different videos, an evolution for Dunsparce, okay? Your boy Dunsparce has been neglected for far too long. I did the Dunsparce song, okay? I said, come on, let's go, Nintendo. Someone commented on it. I didn't even realize this was a thing. They're like, oh, this didn't age well. I'm like, wait, what? And so I look it up. Guys, Dunsparce is not only in the game, they added an evolution for Dunsparce, but they trolled us. They trolled us. His name is Dunsparce, okay? And he looks exactly like Dunsparce, only like he's slightly longer. I wish I was kidding. Dunsparce. After all this time, they made him slightly like the other parts of him have not changed at all. It is the most subtle and brilliant troll.
What a good troll.
Is it directed at me? Yes, I'm going to take full credit for that.
You're welcome, everyone. Yeah.
That's right. So I guess I have to make a new jingle because they did it. We did it. Go team.
Oh my goodness.
We say the most influential podcast in gaming, and we don't actually always mean it, but I mean,
put him on the payroll, Game Freak. Put him on the payroll.
That's right. I'll tell you who to evolve. But that was amazing. So yeah, on that note, let's see what happens. Let's give it a little time and see if they figure this out. But
I'm still looking forward to playing through it, and I'll be giving my thoughts. And hey, maybe there'll be a week 2 patch where they'll try to do some performance issues. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I'm sure they have developers that are working on all that right now to really do everything they can to make it better.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, I feel like you kind of talked about this already, but like the fact that these open world games, there's going to be bugs, no matter what you try to make it as perfect as possible. There's going to be some issues, but they should. Every one of these games that come out, they have to have like a follow up, like year one, post year 1 reviews.
Yeah.
And then like give the official stamp of like, okay, this game is good or bad based on that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
But
yeah, a lot of game reviewers will come back and be like, hey, here's the year 1 review, especially live service games. But even games like this, like it's a very popular thing. And even if like the big publications on IGN and all that don't do it, like you will see YouTubers that will smartly be like, okay, here's my 2022 review of Sea of Thieves or Pokemon and whatever. Because people want to know that. Like, they don't want to know a review. It almost doesn't matter anymore when you review a game, you know, in 2022, in 2025. People don't care about that review. Like, they want to know, how does the game review now? That industry norm, I wouldn't say it's irrelevant. It's just changed, where you kind of have to provide more and more updates, to let your fans know, like, here was where it is today versus yesterday. Because if you were to look at a Sea of Thieves, you know, review from when it launched, you would think that this game is just an absolute plague, and you'd be missing out on some great content. So, well, we have another story to get to, but before we do, as always, want to give a huge shout out to our friends over. Wait for it. Is it going to push? Is it going to play? Uh-oh. See, this is why it's not going to play. That's fine. I'll edit it in post. Thank you, as always, to our friends on Patreon, like our QTB and Fuego supporters, Epic Capture Productions, Matt.Bat, Alexa, Caitlin, Josh, Court Nene, and our newest QTB and Fuego supporter. Welcome to Megan. Thank you so much. And our QTB Plus supporters, Nick, the Dudist Monk, Indie Gamiacs, Alan Abadessa, Mr. Grove Games, The Intergalactic Pinecone, and Fluffy Bunny. If you would like bonus content like early access and extended access to our podcast, including the pre and post show, as well as a ton of bonus content, the QTB Nostalgia Vault. We're going to be announcing some fun new Patreon content soon as well. Check it out. Tiers start as low as $2, $5 tier, and I'll get you exclusive merch that you can't get anywhere else but on Patreon. So again, check it out at patreon.com/quitthebuild. The link is in our description. Thank you so much for your support. Okay, guys, the next story, and like I said before, I said there was a little bit of drama, and I mean, this story has been ongoing. It's just, I mean, the news journalism, game journalism industry is eating this up right now, and rightfully so, because, you know, both Xbox head Phil Spencer and Jim Ryan, of course, the CEO of PlayStation, are not shy about going to the press with comments. And so in a way, it kind of fuels the console war, I think, in that we are seeing more and more details come out about this Call of Duty situation. And, you know, of course, the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, or proposed that, you know, it's still being held up by some legislation there, and some investigations done by various countries. When you have a merger like that, of that scale, you know, like the FTC and what have you will come in and ask some questions. And nonetheless, while it's been stalling, Jim Ryan from PlayStation has had no qualms about coming out on record as having some issues with this acquisition. And, you know, we've heard back and forth things all the time, and, you know, we're very critical of PlayStation on this show. Like, I'm not gonna pull punches. I can't hand it off to Bruno for a Bruno rant this time. But that's probably that's okay. So I'll do my best here, which is to say that this story coming from yardbarker.com, it was revealed recently because Phil Spencer went onto a podcast and revealed that as of right now, an offer has been made to Sony to allow them to keep the Call of Duty franchise on their platform for 10 years. That was an offer that was formally submitted to Sony because the concern was that now that, you know, if Microsoft, the deal goes through and now they have access to Call of Duty, that they will just pull it from all other platforms and make it so that you can only get it on Xbox, and of course make it part of their Game Pass offering with their ever-growing lineup. And if there's one thing that they need on that service right now, it's definitely first-party games. But nonetheless, you know, Phil Spencer made it very clear before this news even broke that, like, he wants to do whatever he can to keep Call of Duty cross-platform and available on other platforms. But nonetheless, it just doesn't seem like those answers or offers are ever good enough for Jim Ryan. And, you know, in the gaming industry, there's no such thing as forever with these contracts. No one's going to sign a contract in perpetuity for the rights for anything. Okay.
Right.
So I guess what I'll ask you here, Chris, is, you know, you guys follow Xbox very closely, and specifically Game Pass content. What is this looking like from your perspective? Because it just seems like this feuding will never end, and I can't imagine that there's going to be a good outcome for Sony the more that these kind of stories come out that paint Jim Ryan in such a negative light, right?
Yeah, he's not helping himself or the brand. But there's on the flip side of it, there's people that will support him and go tooth and nail, like just say whatever he's saying is right and correct, and we're sticking with it no matter how. And it fascinates me because it's like he's talking out of both sides of his mouth, because he's talking about, oh, you guys are taking the games away from us and all this exclusivity, but that's how Sony built their whole platform, was to have all these exclusive things. They took Spider-Man out of the Avengers game and put it only on the Sony, only on PlayStation. So it was like,
Yeah.
you guys are not seeing, you are you're not seeing the log in your eye and pointing out the splinter kind of thing, right? So
yeah,
it's just fascinating to me. But I don't know how they expect this to be good. Like for Jim Ryan to say that, like they don't have a PR person and be like, dude, just chill out a little bit. Like, let's not say all this crazy stuff for a little bit. And like, it just makes Microsoft look that much better. And they're getting more and more, like people are kind of, I at least from my eyes, it seems like they're getting more of the gamer's perspective, and people are enjoying the content that Microsoft's coming out with. And not that people are not saying the same thing about Sony stuff. They're still coming out with great stuff. Obviously, God of War Ragnarok just came out. So but I think that they're still sticking to their old ways of things, and they're not evolving their business model. So
yeah, they're definitely doubling down on it. And two things is that one, it's Sony is the one, like you said, that is willing to get these IPs and just keep them to themselves and be like, no, you can't have this. Spider-Man, especially, not only within video games, but also in the movies industry. But also, or you can have it, but only under our very, very specific terms. Or, and I'll say this, like, let's not kid ourselves. Sony is always the first one to be like, hey, okay, the game is cross-platform, but we want you to make it available first on ours, or there's going to be content like a quest or some kind of certain aspect of the game that is only available either exclusively on PlayStation or available first on PlayStation. Everybody gets it like a year later.
Final Fantasy, right?
Right. Let's not kid ourselves into thinking that if the shoe were on the other foot, and they were the ones that could afford to buy Activision Blizzard and actually got through with it, that Jim Ryan wouldn't day one yank every single Call of Duty game off of Xbox and PC if he could have his way too.
Absolutely.
Totally mine now.
Right. Like, he will go scorched earth because that is their business model. That is what they want to see happen. And rather than, I think, adapt to the way that, that the games industry is moving towards, they seem to be more content to kind of go almost the Nintendo route, but not quite, of kind of being like, what, we're gonna build those walls as much as we can and keep our users, within our platform. People still can't get a PS5. We say this every episode. The holiday season is coming up, 2022. There's two things you can count on the QTB podcast: is for Bruno to somehow loop it back to Halo. Bruno, that's for you. I looped it back to Halo.
There it is.
Or for us to mention that you still can't buy these PS5s. Or if you can, it's just for such a limited window of time that it's a real shame. And I don't know, Joel. I mean, what are you seeing here? Like, is Sony's business model making you at any point ever look at it and be like, you know what? Maybe they're onto something.
No, I mean, besides not being able to get one, I don't really have a want to get a PS5 right now. I mean, there's definitely some exclusives that I'd be excited to play, but man, it just bums me out when I think about it. That's part of the reason that I enjoy Xbox or PC is because most of the things are available on that I can play with my friends. I love being able to play games with friends, and having multi-platform is so great. And they were like with Bungie and Destiny 2. Destiny was very clear saying, well, it's going to be multi-platform, but I'm not 100% confident for the future, because they already said some things are going to be available on PlayStation first. And I'm like, oh man, you're already putting your own content first and making those exclusives. So I don't feel so confident for the future for the Destiny fans that it's not only going to be on PlayStation in a couple of years down the road. Who knows? So I don't know. That's I love the idea of it being available to more. I mean, obviously having your own IP and drawing customers to you, but with the Game Passes and things that are such a big and great platform, it doesn't make sense to me to say, nope, we're only on this. It's kind of just, it doesn't seem like it's something in the market now that's really going to be winning for the future.
I think it's just really getting under the skin of the people in the boardroom, that one of their biggest, their highest grossing franchises. Now, inevitably, they know that contract is going to say, hey, we'll let you have Call of Duty games for the next 10 years, but naturally we're going to get a cut of the sales because we will own the franchise. Yep. So like for your biggest competitor to kind of steal that away from under you and be like, you can have it, but we get some. I think that there's a couple people in that boardroom, not just Jim Ryan, that like, oh man, they're seething in these investor calls. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, for sure. But the other thing, I guess they've kind of loosened the whole exclusivity, right? Because they're slowly releasing games on PC now. It's like a year or two down the line, but these games are coming to PC. So they've kind of loosened that because I guess they realize like, okay, one, we can't get these consoles to people. So how are we going to get games in these IPs to people? And now it's like, okay, well, let's publish it to PC. At least then it's a neutral or DMZ, so to speak, for them in that realm. But it's I don't know. Like I mean, it was also it still shocks me today that MLB The Show is on Game Pass, and it was like such a big win for Microsoft to get that. And it makes me laugh every time to see the Sony Studios, like, and you launch the game, it's like I'm playing a Sony game. It's like,
you wouldn't like what a world.
Game Pass.
It's like playing Sega games on other platforms after the demise of the Dreamcast, and it's just like this doesn't feel real.
Yeah. And so it's like, I mean, that I was that like the first domino to fall, like to be able to see like that Sony is losing their grip, so to speak, on that on the game space as a whole, or at least So I don't know. It's funny. And I can't wait when it, I guess it will happen.
Yeah.
And we shall see with the whole Activision thing, and to see all that stuff go, and then to do the opposite now, right? Let's say like Microsoft Game Studios on a PlayStation on PlayStation hardware will be funny to see eventually.
Yeah. Eventually, I don't know. Yeah, I continue to wonder to see, what the next 5 years or so we'll have in store as the gaming industry seems to be consolidating more and more, and just the pie chart of who owns these big developers is just only a few big players, and there are definitely some concerns that we as gamers should have when companies like Microsoft acquire.
Come on, indie devs! Come on, indie devs! Keep it up.
The problem with that is, Joel, that we're definitely champions of indie games. But I mean, this has happened before, where indie game studios will have a decent hit, and then a company like EA will do this. Will come in and be like, hey, we want to buy your studio. And it's like, you want to be a champion for indie games, but there's also a number that you signed the papers.
Right.
And so they end up taking it, and then they just dismantle the group and shut it down. This just happened with Square Enix's, was it Embracer? That was responsible for making like the mobile games for a lot of the franchise entries for like Hitman and Lara Croft Tomb Raider, that they were acquired by another company and then almost immediately dismantled. It's a hostile takeover. So in some cases, it can be almost an anti-competition thing where it's like you buy them out to get rid of them so that your product doesn't go in the way. This happens all the time in corporate in the corporate space. And now it's happening more with these small studios where like being successful, unless you've really got a core set of principles and you're confident that you can exist as a game company as more than just a flash in the pan, it's real easy to I'm sure to have that offer in front of you and be like, ooh, I could be comfortable for the rest of my life, or I can make games on principle. Like which one is it going to be? It's tough. Yeah.
I really enjoyed. There was a magic based battle royale called Spellbreak, which kind of had a high skill gap and high skill ceiling. So it was kind of hard for just a random person to jump in, like a Fortnite player, and be really good at it, because you had to have like these gauntlets that did magic, and you combine the magic, and you'd have to do these chemical reactions to do damage, and it was definitely a high skill gap. But the mechanics of the game were so fun and so engaging. You felt like, you were a wizard flying around. You're a wizard, Harry.
Yeah.
And flying around and blasting people and shooting fireballs. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And then Blizzard bought them, and then they stopped the game. And there we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they take those assets and the talent and they say, you know what, we don't want you to work on this anymore. That was, what was it? I think it was Activision Blizzard that took the people that were making the Spyro and Crash games and then took them, and now they're working on Warzone. Like, if you are a fan of Crash and Spyro, and the new Crash game did well, and people are like, well, now you're going to make a new Spyro, right? No, never again. They just got completely dismantled. So yeah, that's the consequence of a buyout. Yeah, is that a lot of these lesser grossing but still, beloved franchises, they get scrapped for parts. That's it's so heartbreaking to think about. But okay, well, on that note, since we're ending on a downer,
games are great.
That's right. I want to thank you guys both so much for joining us here for the podcast. Awesome to have our QTB Network family on board. And again, to our listeners and viewers, if you haven't already, we always say to go to our website, quitthebuild.com. That's your one-stop shop for all things QTB. Make sure to go to that network page because not only is Joel on there, not only is 1 Hour, One Decision on there, Chris and Tom and the great work that they're doing. You can check out all of our amazing QTB Network family. We've got musicians, we've got streamers, podcasts, you name it. And of course, go to our merch shop, check out our amazing lineup of merch. I'm telling you right now, get the Christmas sweater now. So because that happened last year, people couldn't get it in time. If you want the QTB ugly sweater, it's waiting for you on our shop. Get that and all the other amazing stuff that we have there on our site. And of course, on the homepage or any page, scroll right down to the bottom. Get that link to join our Discord. Okay, one of the most listen, we have such a fun community on Discord. We have grown so much over the last few months.
It's a lot of fun.
We've got, there's people in there hanging out playing games every night. We've got, we even started a QTB book club. People were like, Nick, we want to start a book club. I'm like, no problem. Have a channel. Here you go. Here's some voice. Here's a forum. We have a forum. We're fancy on Discord. Okay, that's right. Yeah, get out the monocle there, Joel, because it's they're talking about the finer things there. It's good times, and there's something for everybody on that server. So be sure to join that and join our growing community of gamers that put positivity, inclusivity, and fun first. Thank you so much. And alrighty. Well, so normally we do this where we only have one guest, but you guys have been here before, so you should totally know. We'll go me, Joel, and then Chris, okay? All right, everybody. Until next time. For Joel and Chris, I'm Nick.
For Chris and Nick, I'm Joel.
For Joel and Nick, I'm Chris.
Yes, there it is.
Nailed it.
I'll say it for Bruno. Peace out. What it do?
Quit the build.